So for getting like outside interest on your games, I mean, when did people start approaching you to use or to license your IP?
Licensing of game IP is an interesting thing, and it changes over the kind of ebbs and flow of industry, what's going on in other media. There are points where people are really interested in just good creative IP, and they're not really interested or don't really care about how big of an audience you're going to deliver to them. Because when a person licenses an IP, they're looking for one or two or both things. They're looking for either a really, interesting creative product, right? Something that they see that they can take to a new market, but really value the creativity that's going into it ahead of time. Or they're looking for a large number of people who already know about this and that they want to be able to use that large established audience to launch the new product that they're doing that's set within yours, or purely just monetize the audience that you've already established. Now, often ideally they're looking for both. In the games and licensing games IP, in different decades, people have been looking for different things. Whether they were looking for purely the audience or looking for a combination of the audience and the IP. It can be a tricky animal when you license out IP, because you want to make sure that you're maintaining enough control on it so that if indeed you think this is a property that can last for a very long time, that you're able to maintain the quality and the continuity of that over that length of time. And that gets pretty difficult, because if you're talking to somebody who's going to make a television show or make a movie, or even spend a lot of money in taking a toy frame, making a big toy line, they're pretty hesitant to give any measure of control to you. So it's a matter of trying to find that right balance between trusting the partners that you're getting in bed with, and the control that you're getting explicitly through the contract. And it also depends on the IP, right? If indeed you don't see this as an IP that's going to last for decades, and it's really kind of more of in the moment, then that can be less important. So it really can be a different kind of thing, but they can be often very tricky kind of relationships.
What do you do when the license IP that you've licensed out isn't exactly turning out like you wanted?
So you're talking about like where you've said you've licensed another company to make something based on your IP and it's not going the way you want?
Or it's either moving in a direction that doesn't really conform with your ideas for the IP, or it isn't going to be as successful as some of your other versions of the IP.
Those are real risks. And really, if you're at the point where you're seeing their creative execution, then you're probably well past the point where you've done your deal, and that deal is going to have limits to what you can, how much you can affect what the outcome of that is, realistically. And that's the real risk, right? That you've built this very successful game and game IP, and then you license it to somebody who's going to make a movie, and they make a movie that just tanks and it kills your game, right? That's a real possibility. In fact, it's almost more of a likelihood than just a possibility. So you really have to be try to be as careful as you can. B, as I said, be very realistic about what is the potential for this property. If it is, if it's more of a short-term thing, then it might be that the expedient thing to do is that you make the best deal you can and put the money in your pocket to allow you to go make new games, right? But if it's a game and a property you think can go on for a long time, then sometimes you have to pass up that money and try to maintain the quality on a smaller scale. I've talked to a lot of people who have both had huge successes on stuff they've licensed, like the guys who did Ninja Turtles. What became of their property was never on a scale that they would have ever had, doing indie comics, and so they were wildly happy about it. Or Dave Stevens, who was not wild about what happened with his property when he licensed, sold the film rights. So it's been all over the camp. And It's a deal with the devil. Just try to know the devil as much as you can.
Well, it seems like you've maintained quite a bit of control over the licensed products that you for your IP. Is that typical within the industry, or is it more of a safety valve that you exercise to maintain the quality?
I mean, we did for many years have a pretty tight control of the properties, but then when I sold companies, those companies sold with the IP, and I lost control of those, right? So, the properties, some of the properties we've been talking about, like Warrior BattleTech Shadowrun, I don't own those properties anymore, and the people who do own them now control them. And occasionally they'll consult me, but they're not really obligated to do so. They now own those properties. So, that is it's a very difficult decision to come to at that point. But sometimes it's the right thing to do. And in the case of Shadowrun, it became interesting. That then circled back. I licensed back my own property, to be able to create the game that we just funded through Kickstarter, which is an interesting kind of circular route. So it gets to be an interesting world if you live long enough, and some of your creations live as long as well.